Hey, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, then welcome. Today I will be doing part 2 of my May wrap-up. So I did already talk about the first 4 books that I read in May in a previous video. If you have not seen that video yet and you would like to, definitely go ahead and do that. I will link that video in the description box so you can watch that one, preferably before you watch this one, just so the order of my reading makes more sense. But I managed to read 3 more books in the month of May, so those are the books that I will be talking about today. This is something that I thought I should start doing because I do make monthly TBRs, but whenever I do my wrap-ups, I never mention the books that I didn't end up getting to from my monthly TBR, because that happens because inevitably I will not be able to get to every single book that I put on my monthly TBRs. So I'm going to start doing that because it feels kind of weird to mention books on my monthly TBR and then never bring them up again. So I'm going to put on the screen all the books that I put in my May TBR, and I'll label the ones that I did end up getting to, the ones I didn't end up getting to, and the ones that I DNF'd. So I know I DNF'd 2 books this month, and I think there's about 2 books from my TBR for this month that I didn't end up getting to. But fortunately, the majority of the books that I put on my monthly TBR, I did end up reading this month. So why don't we just get right into it, and I'll talk about the 3 books that I read for the rest of the month and 1 book that I ended up DNFing. Before we move forward though, I do have my fan on. It is summertime. Well, it's not quite summertime yet, but summer is coming and it is getting hotter over here, and I have to keep a fan on in this room while I'm filming just to prevent myself from like nearly passing out, because heat really gets to me. So I do have a fan on, and I'm hoping that the background noise is not crazy. I tested it out through my microphone and I didn't hear too much background noise, but in case some pokes through, that is why. I'm sorry if that bothers you, but for my like well-being and comfortability, I have to keep a fan on, so that's why. Anyway, let's just get started. Okay, we're starting this out with a bang because I'm going to be talking about one of the books that I DNF'd this month, and I'm about to get ranty. So just prepare yourselves. I am about to go off. I've been like, I hated this book, but I am like excited to talk about it because I just love ranting. I think it's so fun. So we're gonna rant. But you're probably curious what book that is. That is The Ritual by Chantal Tessier, I believe. This book was god-awful. Oh my god. I had mentioned it in my previous mid-month wrap-up, and I had mentioned that I was DNFing it for now, and then I planned to get back to it later. I just needed a break from it because I was not enjoying it. I ended up never picking it back up again because I just disliked it that much, and I wanted to move on to other books that I was excited to read. I was not looking forward to getting back into this one, so I was like, you know what? We're just gonna DNF it. I got like 70% into this book, so I read the majority of it, and that's why I was like so stubborn, like I don't want to DNF this, but I just couldn't take it anymore. I knew it was going to be a 1-star anyway, so I gave up on it, and I'm actually glad I did because this book was so terrible. So I will tell you what it's about. It is a dark romance. It takes place in college. We're following this one girl whose name is Blakely. I'm like trying to remember everything that happened. Her name's Blakely. The male main character's name is Riot, and Riot is a member of the secret society that takes place in this college, and it's filled with all these rich guys, and it's basically a secret society where they're like competing for power. And their reward from graduating from this secret society and getting to like the top level is that they are able to take a chosen one. So they're able to choose a girl to take as their partner, but more like to take as someone they can like use for like sexual gratification. And so Riot is forced to choose Blakely because the secret society forces him to. And so we're basically following their romance, even though it's not really a romance. Riot is more like obsessed with her. And the whole dynamic of the relationship is that Blakely really wants to be used. That's like her whole goal. Like she finds freedom with a man using her, and Riot is able to fulfill that. And so she's like okay with him just like using her body. And that's the basic premise. And yeah, this book was just not for me. And I struggle, I am going to be completely honest, I struggle to figure out who this book is actually for because the dynamic of this relationship was just so problematic and gross. And I just don't understand how anyone could root for them. This book is so highly rated. I had been seeing this book on book Facebook groups that I'm in, and it would get recommended a lot, and that's the reason I picked this one up. Like, people would say, this book is so amazing, like, the romance is amazing, and so I picked it up, and I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean? This is one of the worst romances I have ever read. So bad. And one of the big things that bother me about this one is that it's classified as dark romance. And here's the thing, I love dark romance. I love reading books with darker themes, so I absolutely love dark romance. But I feel like there's this like subgenre of dark romance that I don't like, where these books are classified as dark romance only because they have really like brutal kinks in them. And that's not the type of dark romance that I want to read. I more enjoy dark romances that involve really psychological, deep themes that deal with like dark, eternal feelings that the characters are going through. I do not like the dark romances that just focus on like BDSM and like I said, brutal kinks. That's just not for me. And I feel like that should not be classified as dark romance. And this book was exactly that. And I was not really aware of that before going into this one. So I am not one to kink shame. Like, do whatever you want as long as it's not hurting anyone. And Blake's kinks in itself are not bad. She gets turned on by the idea of forced sex, which I can kind of understand. I think a lot of women, and I'm like this too, they want to be pursued and wanted. So with her having this kink, I can get where she's coming from, but it's Riot that I have a problem with in this situation because I never felt like he was practicing these kinks with Blakely, like, all in good fun. His intentions always felt malicious, like he actually wanted to SA her, and that's what I had a problem with. Even though Blakely have these kinks, like I said, in itself isn't bad, I felt like she was feeding in to Riot's, like, psychopathic tendencies because it comes across, at least to me, that he actually wants to assault her, and she was constantly just feeding into that and encouraging him, and I didn't like that. Because if there came a situation where these two were to break up, he will continue on thinking that it's okay to just assault someone because Blakely encouraged it, and in turn he could do that to someone else, and that's what I had a problem with. I was holding out on Riot for a long time because even though he was such a shitty person in the beginning, I kept reading this book because I was hoping that he would go through some character growth that would make his character more likable, like he would become more self-aware that he is actually like psychopathic. So I was holding out for that, but that just never happens. I got through 70% of this book and he had still gone through like little to no character development, and that's just weak writing. Like, you cannot have one of your main characters go through absolutely no character development for more than half of the book. That completely lost me, and that was one of the major reasons why I DNF'd this one. Maybe it gets better later on in the book, but I just ran out of patience and I just didn't care anymore. You just cannot have one of your main characters be that unlikable. There was not one moment where I felt for his character at all. This book is told in dual POV from Blakely and Riot's point of views, and every single chapter that had Riot's point of view, I just like in my mind would say like, shut the fuck up. I do not care what you have to say because everything that comes out of his mouth is so disgusting. I could not stand him. And this is the moment where I decided to DNF this book. This is the moment where I put it down and just ultimately decided to never pick it up again. There's this scene where he and Blakely are doing it, you know? And during it, Blakely tells Riot that she has not been on her birth control for a while. So, you know, there's a risk of pregnancy there. And Riot's response was so vile. He tells her, I don't care. Like, what the actual fuck? What do you mean you don't care? If a man said that to me, I I'd be throwing hands. I would be like, absolutely not. I would pull away, stop everything. Of course, Blakely doesn't do that for whatever reason. I'm like, girl, have some more self-respect for yourself. Do not put up with that. He just says, I don't care, and he uses no precautions. Absolutely disgusting, vile. I hated him so much more in that moment. I was like, nope. Put the book down, and that was, I never read it anymore. Like, how dare this man think he could have that much control over a woman's body? They never talked about having a baby beforehand, and he's just like, I don't care, I'm gonna get you pregnant. Disgusting. Oh my god. It actually makes me like really mad. Really mad. I'm like shaking. It pissed me off so much. Also, the development of the secret society was very weak. That was the part I was most interested in going into this book, because I like love reading about like cults and like secret societies. And it was basically just a backdrop to the like problematic romance. It was barely even developed. I still like have no idea what the secret society really even does. Like, it was so poorly developed. So yeah, absolutely hated this book. This series has a lot of books in it, but of course I would not be continuing with the series, and I probably will never read one of these authors' books again, because the writing in this one was also really bad. There were so many paragraphs that were just chock full of descriptions that were so unneeded, like the characters just getting dressed and getting ready for their day, and it was so like, it was useless information that just bogged down the writing. Like, everything about this one was just really bad. So in my opinion, I would not recommend it. I know it's a very popular book, but if any of the things that I mentioned bother you, do not read this one. Now I'm super excited to talk about a book that I actually did enjoy. I love this one so much, and that is Silver Elite by Danny Francis. This was my book of the month book pick for the month, and I had no idea that this book was like blowing up recently. Before I picked it as my book of the month book, I was like, oh, that's like a new unheard of book. I'll check it out. This book has blown up like on Book Talk and on BookTube so much, and it's so rare that I read a hyped book this early on. So I'm really glad I picked this one up as my book of the month book. So let's talk about it. So this one takes place in a world where it's the post-war, and a lot of the population has adopted mind-controlling abilities following a radiation leak. This group, called the Modified, are hunted down because of the danger that their power holds. Ren is one of the Modifieds who is forced to work with the enemy when she is sent to their military program. While she's there, she tries to stay under the radar because she's one of these Modified with these mind-controlling powers among all the normies, and she poses a danger to society, and they're after her. So she tries to stay under the radar. While she's there, though, she is falling for Cross, who is her captain. So there's kind of a falling for your enemy kind of trope in there. And that's a trope that I really love. So I really was into this romance. What really made this book stand out to me was our main character, Ren. She's your typical badass NC, but I really loved how loyal and thoughtful she is towards others. I think that empathy is one of the most important traits that we can have, and she found herself feeling empathy even towards the people that she's supposed to hate. And I just really enjoyed that about her. Like, I feel like she's someone who can see even beyond the people who are after her and see them for like the deep down kind-hearted people that they can be and that they are, because her enemies are only motivated by propaganda that has been enforced on them, but Ren really sees them for who they are deep down and has a lot of empathy for them, and I really enjoyed that about her. Along with that, she has a lot of self-worth and really a lot of self-respect for herself, and I just adored that. Like, she does not let anyone walk all over her. And an unpopular opinion, from what I've seen after like watching and reading reviews of this book, I like the idea of a dystopian romance. And that's kind of like a given because I'm a romance girly. I mean, romance books are the main genre that I read, so like, of course, I like the idea of a dystopian romance, but a lot of people don't because they feel like dystopian has such serious themes in them that a romance can like unserious the themes of a dystopian, but I disagree. And the major reason why I disagree is that I value romance. I value all relationships, in fact, and that includes romantic relationships. And I feel like romance can hold a lot of really deep important themes as well. So I just have no problem with romance, and along with that, romance in the dystopian genre. But this book does feel like more of a romantasy than a dystopian, and so for that reason there are sex scenes in this one, and I think a lot of people had a problem with that because you have spicy scenes in a dystopian book where the theme is supposed to be serious. And again, I'm going to say I don't think there's anything wrong with anyone having sex. So it didn't bother me at all. It didn't take away from the themes that I did get from this book. The themes of oppression and prejudice, I still took away those themes from this book despite there being sex scenes. And the sex scenes were actually super sweet and kind of cute and gave me the warm and fuzzies. So I just loved them, and they were kind of still respectful. They weren't too descriptive. If those scenes had been really descriptive and everything that's going on, it might have taken away the serious nature of this book, but they really weren't at all, at least to me. They were just super sweet, so I enjoyed them. And speaking of the romance, I loved how slow burn this romance is. There's definitely insta-lust, I will say that. Ren mentions a lot constantly, and this did kind of get annoying. Every single time Cross was in her vicinity, she could not help herself but comment in her inner dialogue how hot he was, constantly. And I'd be like, girl, okay, we get it. So there definitely was a lot of insta-lust, but the emotional connection between them was very, very slow burn, and I really love that, because I always will love a slow burn romance. I just adored Ren and Cross together, and I cannot wait to see where their relationship goes in the rest of this series and how it develops. I'm going to be seated for that. And there were actually a lot of side characters that I loved, which is rare for me because usually side characters just fade in the background for me, and I'm way more focused on the main characters. But a lot of the side characters were so memorable. I really loved Kane, who was one of Ren's fellow soldiers who she really becomes friends with, and I found their relationship so cute and sweet, and they low-key kind of have a romance. And I found that kind of interesting. So I just really loved him. He's super funny, super chill, and just an all-around good dude. So I enjoyed him a lot. And there was just so many other side characters who I really, really loved. And this writing was absolutely fantastic. It flowed beautifully. It was not overwritten. And I feel with a lot of romanticies specifically, a lot of them can feel kind of overwritten. I'm specifically thinking of Fourth Wing. That series is so overwritten, and there's just so many words on the page that comparing this book to Fourth Wing, this one was just so much easier to read. So I really appreciated that. And I would say this is fantastically written for a debut author, but here's the tea. Word around the street is that this is not a debut author, and that this is a very, very popular author who is writing under a pen name. And there's been a lot of speculation on who that author is. People have thrown around that it could be Sarah J. Maas. I don't think it's Sarah J. Maas because this writing style does not match Sarah J. Maas's writing to me. So I don't think it's her. Colleen Hoover has also been thrown out there, and honestly, I think this could be Colleen Hoover. Based on the fact that the writing in this is so good, and I gel so well with Colleen Hoover's writing style. I always find her books so easy to read and so captivating. I think this could be Colleen Hoover. And it kind of makes sense because she is primarily a romance author and doesn't really venture out into a lot of other genres. And so it makes sense that she would want to write a dystopian novel under a pen name. I think it could be her. And I wonder if we'll ever find out who this author actually is. I want to know so bad. The fact that I could be, reading a Colleen Hoover book and not know it, that is insane. I would recommend this one. It is the first book in a series. I cannot wait to continue on with this series. It's killing me that I have to wait for the rest of the books to come out because I read this right when it came out. That never happens to me. I never do that. So I actually have to wait this time. But yeah, This one was so good. I think this is the best book that I read this month, hands down. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This next one I'm not going to talk about too much because it was a reread, and that is Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. This is the first book in her Black Dagger Brotherhood series. So the reason I decided to reread this one is because the TV adaptation for it is coming out tomorrow. As I'm filming this, it should be out by now by the time I put this up, and I wanted to reread this book to get myself excited for the TV adaptation that is coming out. I last read this book in 2019, so it's been a hot minute, and I actually enjoyed this one more than the first time I read it. The first time I read this one, I gave it 4 stars, but upon reread, it's a 5-star. Like, I just loved it so much more. So I'll briefly talk about this one. I'll tell you what it's about. So this series, it follows this group called the Black Dagger Brotherhood, and they are a group of vampires. This world, it's an urban fantasy, so it takes place in modern day, and the Black Dagger Brotherhood is full of vampire warriors who are tasked with protecting the vampire race from this group called the Lessers, who are previous humans who have been transformed by this being called the Omega. And the Omega pushes the Lessers to take down vampires. So in the first book, we're following Wrath, who is the leader of the Black Dagger Brotherhood, and he is tasked with finding this half-breed vampire called Beth, who is about to go through her transition into a vampire, but she doesn't know that. She does not know that her father was a vampire and she has vampire blood in her and she's about to change. And so she has to drink Wrath's blood in order to survive her transition. And so Wrath finds her and they have like this instant like out of this world connection. They are instantly attracted to each other, and throughout the book they do end up falling for each other. This is another book that does have insta-lust in it, but for some reason the insta-lust in it kind of works for me, just because Wrath and Beth's chemistry is just written so well. I actually really enjoyed their first meeting. I was like, oh my god, like they are just all over each other right away, and I was down for it. I just really felt for them, and I overall find their romance just to be so sweet. Wrath is definitely you would think he's an alpha male character, and I don't usually love alpha males, but deep down, he's actually super, super sweet and respectful, and just a really good guy who has just been through a lot, and so he's very moody because of that, but you just really feel for him. And he is so sweet to Beth. He treats her like just the most precious thing in the world. And I just loved him even more than the first time I read this book. It's just such a good book. I am definitely going to be rereading the rest of the books in this series. I have not read every single book in this series because it's a super long series, but this time around, I want to read every single book in this series. I'm gonna make my way through it. I think I want to read like 1 book a month from this series, and so that's what I'm going to do. And I cannot wait for the TV adaptation to come out. I'm going to be watching it tomorrow for sure. Based on the trailer, it looks pretty promising. So yeah, I give this one 5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I finished up the month of May with Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. This is the second book in the Wicked Games series, the first book being Phantasma. And like I mentioned in, I think it was my April wrap-up, that's when I read Phantasma. I loved Phantasma so much. It's for sure going to be one of the best books that I read this year, so I was very much anticipating the sequel. I will say though that this book was not as good as Phantasma, but I still enjoyed it. So while I was writing the synopsis to this book in my reading journal, I realized how convoluted the plot to this one is, because my synopsis that I wrote takes up like a whole page. So a lot happens in this one, and I didn't even include every single thing that happens in the synopsis because just so much happens. So it's going to take me a minute, maybe even more than a minute, to explain what this book is about, so just bear with me. So in this one, we're following Genevieve, who takes a trip to the estate of Enchantra after the head of the Silver family requests that she visit. Genevieve is from a family of necromancers, and she has heard that the Silver family possesses magic, and so she visits Enchantra and hopes to find others who are like her. When she gets there, she immediately meets Rowan, who tells her to leave Enchantra, but Genevieve doesn't end up listening and she enters the estate anyway. Later, it is revealed that the reason that Rowan asks her to leave is because every summer solstice, the Silver family is forced to play rounds of hide and seek where in each round they take each other out. Like, take each other out. Each player that loses is sent to hell where they have to stay there until the next summer solstice when the game starts up again. And the winner, the last person standing at the end, is granted a year of freedom until the game starts back up again next summer. But anyone outside of the family who steps inside of the estate during the summer solstice is forced to play the game. And if they are mortal, they don't just get sent to hell and wait out until the next game like the Silver family does, they just die. And so Genevieve faces the risk of dying if she is defeated in the game. But she is able to get around this if she marries Rowan, because there is a loophole that if you marry into the family, then you can survive the game. If a married pair wins the game at the end, they are granted eternal freedom. And so Genevieve ends up marrying Rowan, so we have a marriage of convenience plotline going on here, and they end up playing the game together. So while this book wasn't as good as Phantasma, it definitely still has the whimsical vibe that I really enjoyed from the first book. I really enjoyed Genevieve, who is the younger sister of Ophelia, who we follow in Phantasma, and what I really like is how different in personality Ophelia and Genevieve are. So the fact that we were following from the perspective of Genevieve in this book made it so that it didn't feel like too much of a repeat of Phantasma because Genevieve's personality is so different from Ophelia. She is so much more like brash and stubborn and wild, where Ophelia is definitely more like subdued. So it was almost a completely different book from the first one. And I really love Genevieve for the reason that she just really yearns to find her place in this world, and she's hoping to find that within the Silver family, and overall, she kind of does. So it was like a really sweet story to follow. And I really liked Rowan as well. And I felt for him because he is so desperate to free his family from this curse where they have to play rounds of hide and seek every single year. And most of them are forced to stay in hell until the next game. And so it's just a very, very sad situation. He wants to free his family from this, but he doesn't know how. And that is the saddest part. He comes across as stoic, but really he just holds a lot of compassion for Genevieve and as well as for his family. And I love that about him. And another interesting thing about him is that he is a wraith. All of the Silver family are wraiths, and wraiths are the offspring of, I think it was a demon. What does it say? There's a chart in the beginning that tells like all of the paranormal beings in the series and their backgrounds. Let's see. It says wraiths are the offspring of a demon and another paranormal being. And there's like 4 different classifications of wraiths. So Rowan is specifically a shadow wraith, so he is able to control and manipulate shadows. So he's a shadow daddy for sure. And he also has healing powers as well. So his powers and his background as a wraith was also really interesting. And Rowan, he comes off as really, really rude in the beginning when we're introduced to him, because he is like forcing Genevieve to leave the estate of Enchantra. He will not allow her in, even though she's there for a purpose. He will not allow her in, and he is very rude to her, saying like, get out, get away from here. But really, he was only forcing her out to protect her from being forced into this game where she could potentially die. And so his motives always came across as like more like tough love than being an asshole. And of course, instantly Genevieve's like, oh my god, this guy is just, he's like a bastard, like he's so mean to me. But I kept thinking like, girl, he's just trying to protect you. Like his methods aren't ideal, like he's very like rude about it, but he's just trying to protect you. And I really like that. Like he was always sticking up for Genevieve, protecting her, keeping her out of harm's way, and I like that. I love that about him. And along with that, I just love this romance overall. It was definitely very, very slow burn, and I really enjoyed the dynamic between Rowan and Genevieve because I wouldn't say they're enemies to lovers, but I will say that they have a lot of bickering moments that come across as like, oh, you're just really flirting with each other. You know, they have like that kind of relationship. It's super cute. So the reason that I felt like this book was not as good as Phantasma is because that I found this plot to be pretty repetitive. In Phantasma, we're following numerous and very unique trials that kept the plot very interesting. But there's only so many rounds of hide and seek that I can follow before it starts to really feel repetitive, because there's only so much you can do with the concept of hide and seek. And a lot of the scenes where they're just trying to find each other and kill each other just got really repetitive, so I wasn't a huge fan of that. And the stakes actually aren't that dire in this one. Genevieve faces a lot of physical blows in each round, but Rowan has the power to heal, and so she's constantly able to just bounce back really easily, and I think that just lowered the stakes of the game. I also found that the pacing in the third act felt very rushed, and this is a similar problem that I had in Phantasma. I also felt like the ending to Phantasma was really rushed, but I was able to overlook it because I just loved the book overall so much, but I could not overlook it in this one. The pacing of the conflict and resolution was so rushed that it took me like a hot minute to really comprehend what was going on. I'm like, what is happening here? Because the pacing was that fast. It took me like pages later to like really reflect on what was going on. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what happened. So the pacing in the third act could have been better and a lot more slower. But overall, I enjoyed this. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely holds the same kind of vibes as Phantasma. Like, I love paranormal books, but I feel like this is the most unique paranormal series that I have ever read. I think the main part about that is because it hints that it takes place in the 1800s, and I just feel like paranormal in the 1800s just fits so well together, and so it's just such a vibe. These books are such a vibe. I enjoy them so much, and I cannot wait for the third book in the series, which is supposed to come out later this year, like in December, according to Goodreads, so it'll be here pretty soon, and I am really excited about it. So those were all of the books, the rest of the books that I read in May. This was a good reading month. I ended up reading 7 books in total, so pretty good. That's like the average for me. Hopefully my reading for the month of June will be just as good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you read any of these books, because I would really love to know. And I'll be back with my June TBR coming in the next couple of days, so look out for that if you are interested. So hopefully I will see you soon. Bye!